Good morning. As you arrive and settle in, take a moment to allow your body, speech, and mind to naturally settle. This is not a making it settle, it's just taking the opportunity to let go of adding momentum. We can find in the body places where we have added some tension or some inattention to how we're sitting. Can let go of that. We've allowed our speech to come to rest. Allow the internal voice also to come to rest. At least don't ask it for more. So today we're here for the opportunity to do some practice, Bodhisattva Chenrezig. An opportunity to gain a little bit of experience in how Vajrayana practice in general works, using the example of this concise practice. How many people don't have a picture now? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I think I printed about 6 more. You can see if the magic worked. There'll be some other handouts along the way, but I don't want to contribute to the delinquency of a Buddhist practitioner by offering you the opportunity to look at all the things that are printed, because it's so easy to read. So I'll pass them out, but when I do pass them out, please don't bother to look ahead. I'll say, let's look at this, and then we can just look at that, and just be simple. So there's a lot of this involves just being very simple. Even though the Vajrayana seems kind of complicated, it's way less complicated than what we do day to day, minute to minute, in sustaining our approach to samsara. to approach, let's see, how many people have never done Chenrezig practice? A couple of people have not done Chenrezig practice. How many people have not taken refuge? Good. Oh. I missed, who is it? Okay. And how many people have not had a Chenrezig empowerment? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. There's only so much I can know about what I'm going to try to teach before I arrive and see who all the bodhisattvas are. So I will try to respond to you and provide you with something useful. So, one of the things that's critical in doing any practice is to have a sense of our situation and some clarity about why we practice, and a little bit of clarity about how we practice. And I'm going to have some clarity about what time it is. For those who are familiar with what are called the four thoughts that turn the mind, the contemplations of the preciousness of this opportunity that we have, the impermanence of this opportunity, these things are familiar contemplations. Also, when you will have some familiarity with the contemplation of the faults of chasing around in samsaric existence. And the contemplation of karma, which you could say is an investigation of the art of chasing around in samsaric existence, or on the alternative, the art of not chasing around in it. To avoid too much talk today, I want to just emphasize that it's necessary to have some sense of the limitations of our daily chase after happiness and well-being in all the complicated circumstances that we would like to rely on for happiness and well-being. It's important to have that sense of some limitation there, if not a sense of profound limitation. I don't want to make it sound all dreary to say that the deeper you go into practice, the more profound your sense of the limitation of samsara is, but it's true. But along with that, the only way you can go deeply into that is to also see the profound opportunity that we have. It kind of comes together. Seeing exactly what we're doing to contribute to our own confusion and suffering is the first step, or it's the necessary step that allows us to do something about it, to relate to it in a different way. So as we see the deeper ways in which we create confusion and suffering, we will also be seeing the deeper ways that we have some possibility for a way out. A deeper and deeper sense of appreciation for the profound potential that we have. And in the Vajrayana, it's necessary to keep our eye on that sense of the profound potential and not just experience it as something that only people long ago or far away might have connected to. That it's something that we ourselves can connect to very directly. You could even take the word connect out. You could say the profound potential that we actually embody very directly. We have an opportunity to discover this. We use words like Buddha nature, but if we keep it simple to talk about profound well-being, we can have a sense of the thread that leads from where we can appreciate the things that we can appreciate in our own experience. That could lead deeper and deeper. The other step in the preliminaries, if we look into Vajrayana practice, we have sometimes the foundational practices, preliminary practices, Mondro in Tibetan, but I prefer to think of them as the development of core spiritual strengths. They're core things that we need to develop. We need to develop very deeply a sense of appreciation for our own potential. We need to step outside of the sense that we're cut off from that. We need to step outside of our sense that our connections with others are very limited. And in Vajrayana practice in general, there is the principle that though we are using the creative play of the mind, the creative capacity of the mind, you could say to imagine things, we're actually imagining things in a way that is more in accord with how things are than the way that we usually imagine things, the way that we maintain our samsaric perspective on life. In our samsaric perspective on life, we're chasing after a well-being as opposed to connecting to the very profound potential that is right in front of us, or you could say right within us. In our ordinary life, we separate out those we're close to and those that are far away. We don't appreciate that we are fundamentally, moment to moment, always connected with all beings and all phenomena. So when we go for refuge, using the methods of the Vajrayana, we use our capacity to actually imagine reality, which we're continually doing. We're continually imagining reality, and we'll actually explore a little bit about how we do that in an ordinary way as part of today. But we use our ability to imagine reality to bring to mind our very close connections to all beings, and also that we're never really separate from our own pure nature, and we're never disconnected from all those beings who have discovered this, who have uncovered it. So for me, sitting here, it's very easy for me to imagine you all, and then in between you all, space filled with all the people that you're immediately connected to. So take a moment to bring this to mind. And we need also in the Vajrayana to have a kind of bold sense that we are like, you could say, the leader of all sentient beings. It's a very courageous perspective. So we're surrounded by all beings. You can let the faces of all those that you know, you've met, that you've seen anywhere, just flicker into your mind and think, yes, we're all connected. In the dynamic of the present moment, I see only limited things. But this dynamic, the real dynamic, is much deeper. It includes all beings, and not only of the present, all the past and the future. And we need to have a sense that as we look into our own mind and see our wish for continual wish for well-being, and a continual sense of some either very subtle or very obvious lack of that all these beings have this same experience. There's not one that does not share that. We can also imagine that immediately in front of us are all the enlightened ones, all those who have actually discovered pure nature, discovered freedom in the midst of all appearances, freedom in the midst of all the dynamic relationships. Imagine them. If you know the form of Chenrezig, you can use the form of Chenrezig. If not, just like you're looking into a brilliant cloud, you can't necessarily see the individuals, but you sense the radiance that touches each being, touching you. A kind of radiance that touches you in a way that dissolves all tension and confusion. Like it dissolves it from the inside out. If you have some verse of refuge that you have memorized and inspires you, you can recite that to yourself. If you don't have any verse of refuge memorized, you can think how much you would appreciate being in the presence of this in a way that you felt that immediate radiance, felt the compassion and loving kindness of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. A wish to be able to cut through confusion and become just like them. To experience profound well-being that does not depend on circumstances. To be able to, just by being present, allow others to let go of confusion and suffering. Then think, watch all the cloud of enlightened beings dissolve into one, into Chenrezig, if you know that, or just into a radiant, brilliant, radiant, rainbow-like form. Then that form dissolves into your body. Coming to rest in their center, your heart center. Still radiant, filling space, dissolving all confusion. Allow that radiance just to dissolve into the space of mind. Rest. Then again, bringing to mind the connection with all beings. Articulate the wish in your own mind that all beings discover their own pure nature, and that the activity of your meditation and Dharma practice will be the cause of this discovery. Relax a little bit. So today we'll have 3 sessions in the morning and 3 in the afternoon with some breaks. We'll have time for some questions along the way, but we won't do our usual practice of having a long general discussion after lunch. We'll have shorter periods of questions, and I hope that the questions will come from a place of clarifying any doubts you might have about how to do what I just asked you to do. If there was some lack of clarity in the instructions, and not so much about general circumstances, general ideas. So that way, perhaps I will also be encouraged to keep my comments short and to the point. So I'll need your help in that. In the preliminary practices, there is this practice of taking refuge, which you could say sets the stage for all Dharma practice, giving us the encouragement to always recall our connection to all sentient beings, and to always recall our connection to enlightenment itself, to the enlightened ones, bodhisattvas. There are other elements in the preliminary practices that are very helpful. We won't go into them in the same amount of time. But the practices of, you could say, purification, cultivating the wish to let go of habits that support confusion, habits that create harm for ourselves and others. And Ken MacLeod once talked about this, to abandon our loyalty to these habits. And I think that's actually a very telling phrase, because we may on one hand feel like I know better, but somehow I keep betting on the horse of confusion. I keep betting on my cleverness and my aggression. So actually actually abandon that as the source of happiness. Another element in the practice, and this again, you could say core spiritual strengths, the strength of abandoning loyalty to the kleshas, to confused emotionality and ignorance. There's also the practice of letting go of the sense that if only I had this wonderful thing or this wonderful circumstance, if only I had more control, if only, all the if onlys that we, where the burden that we place on all these wonderful things that we wish we had or that we feel we do have, the burden, to let go of the burden that we place on these phenomena to give us happiness. And so the practice of offering everything positive in the entire universe to enlightenment. This should give some sense of, you could say, the scale of the well-being and profound freedom. There's so many things where we say, if only this would turn out, then I would be happy. This practice is more at the level of, even if I had this condition that was beyond imagination for being wonderful, powerful, in control, comfortable, all these things, even if the dependency that I would have on conditions would still be entrapment. So this is cultivating this kind of contemplation deeper and deeper is very important in Dharma practice. And finally, the practice of Guru Yoga, where we do just a little bit more than what we did in the refuge, where at first we bring to mind with profound appreciation the presence of the enlightened ones. In this case, we actually think of a particular individual, whether now living and inspiring us, or an individual of the past, or you could say even a composite of all these individuals who actually have some confidence that profound spiritual cultivation can pay off with deep freedom. And in the Guru Yoga, we develop a relationship with this, and then that actually, just as I asked you in the refuge contemplation, to have the enlightened ones dissolve into you. In the Guru Yoga, we actually, all the enlightened ones in the form of the Guru dissolve into us, and we hold the view at that moment that we are no different. So it's an encouragement to go all the way to the side of saying, this is actually my true nature. This is who I really am. And this theme is present throughout all of Vajrayana practice. Moving from the notion that we are somehow separate from enlightenment, separate from our own pure nature, moving from that to actually, so saying, as Bokar Rinpoche once said about Chenrezig practice, why do we do this complicated? He said, because that's who you really are. And it's one of the most simple summaries of a profound element of Vajrayana practice. So we'll work more with this as the day goes by. Maybe for the end of this session, let's return to imagining the enlightened ones, if we know the form of Chenrezig, in front of us. Imagining all sentient beings surrounding us. Appreciating the dynamic play of interrelationships, which are beyond our ability to narrow down, contain in all the stories that we could tell about our connections. So we just hold all beings with great open-heartedness. Allowing our wish for our own freedom from confusion to be the wish for freedom from confusion for all beings. Experiencing the radiant awareness of enlightened ones, like light radiating, filling space, beams of light permeating our being, permeating all beings that surround us. Again, all the enlightened ones dissolve into a mass of light, condensed enough to be kind of energetic, like a dynamic little play of radiant light. This absorbs into us through the crown of our head, descending to our heart center. Allow it to dissolve into itself. Again, turning our attention to our connection with all sentient beings, making the wish that the activity of our meditation be the cause for liberation. On our breaks, including lunch, we'll maintain silence. And I have some encouragements to try to carry aspects of the meditation into the break. On this break, perhaps to try to carry some sense of connection to all beings and connections to the enlightened ones. You could think the Buddha is always present. If you like, you can carry the Buddha above your head as a sensed presence, or just in front in the space, or around in this. So the Buddha is really sitting upon the altar. So we'll come back in about 10 or 15 minutes.